So before we get started in further codes and learning more things, let's try and understand what's going on our page right now. And there's a few rules that I'm also going to state to you, and you need to make sure you understand them as best as you can. As always, if you have questions, please ask me on Slack. Don't wait till it becomes too complicated to clarify something. Now, so we lifted off here and we noticed there's a bunch of things on our screen. So let's talk about all of that that's going on. The first thing you'll notice is at the top, we have something saying package basic. This is basically a rule that Java requires it, is whenever some code, whenever a class is inside of a package, these things are called packages. So terminology again. Let me write that somewhere. So let's say package. I'm going to come back to this a bit further later. Whenever something is inside of a package, the first line, we need to specify where that file is and which package it is. So notice that basic is also basic, right? The same spelling, and the spelling is important. We'll talk about that in a second here. Okay, so that's the first thing you need to do inside your code. Now, after that, our file will start with this thing called public class hello world. Notice that the word hello world over here has to match exactly this one here. And even though you could run it without it matching, I'm going to remove all your marks if you don't make it match. There's a reason for how we do things, and I would like it that you follow for now, and we'll understand it over time. Okay? So this has to match. We'll talk about public class a bit later. You'll notice that there's two important things here. This curly brace and this one over here. All of our code inside this file, other than package and a few other things, all of our code needs to be inside these curly braces. So all of our code needs to be inside of these curly braces. It doesn't matter that it's a bunch of different lines until we started with the curly and we ended with the curly. Okay, so this tells us the body of our class. Okay, so this part, anything in between, is called the body. And in this case, it's the body of our class. Okay, again, terminology, important. So this is the body. So this is where all of our code is going to be. Okay, this body of the class is important. You'll notice that we have other curly braces. So let me change colors for a second here. So notice over here, we have another curly brace, and you could see that it closes inside. So still within the class body, we have another one, which is the body of my function. And we'll talk about that a bit later. Okay, so this is another body for the function. We'll talk about that a bit later. Actually, I shouldn't say function. We're going to rewrite that. This is the body of our main method. I'm telling you, I could have gave you code directly, but I'm going through this because this part is important. There's normal bugs that you're going to get. There's ways that you're going to be conversing with people. If you don't understand it, you don't know what to Google search. You don't know what's your issue. So terminology is really important. So this is the body of your main method. And we'll talk about the word method a bit later. And you'll notice that this was created inside the curly brace. So it must be closed. It must be closed before the outside one is closed. So what I mean by this is when you open this curly brace, you must close it before we reach this one. If you close it afterwards, we're going to have some problems. Well, you're going to say, well, how would we know the difference between this curly and that curly? Well, what I meant by that is, let's say if we took that code and we brought it outside. So you see here, there's an extra statement. Let me clear my screen. Over here, there's an extra statement, but the statement is outside these curly. So this curly, if you put your mouse over it, you'll notice it's closing this one. It's closing my main method. While this one is closing my hello class, but this has nothing to do with where it is, right? So that's important. So let's clear our screen. Now, there's a few words that are in there, such as, oops, wrong button, sorry, give me 1 second. So there's a bunch of words in there that we're not going to cover right now, such as public, class, static, void. These are reserved words. These are basically keywords. Okay? Keywords are things that are reserved and they could only be used for their intended use. So you cannot, later on, we could create new variables and we'll talk about that, but you cannot use any of these keywords in there. I could give you a list of keywords, but these are basically reserved words, okay, that you cannot utilize. And it's important. We're going to come back to this a bit later. We're not going to talk about what they're doing yet, but we're going to come back to it. The stuff in here, we're going to also ignore for now. One last part that we want to talk about is main. Okay. Now, this method called main, okay, it's called the main method. The main method's purpose, it's the entry point to our application. By entry point, it allows us to know how our application is going to start. Eventually, we're going to have millions of lines of code. How would the computer know what should be the first statement to run? Well, it would know that by going to find this main method. And the first statement to run is going to be the first statement inside of it. So inside this first statement, this is going to be run first before anything else. That's what the main method purpose is. It's our entry point. It's our start of our application. This is how our application will start to reach that goal we're trying to reach. Okay, so this is important. Now, something else to notice is we have statements, and we're going to have more statements as we go along. Okay, so this is called a statement. Inside of a statement, it's an action. It's a command that we give to the computer to do something. And you could see here that this is the command, or this is the what's required to be written for it to print something on the console. So this allows me to print on console, right? So what I mean by this is if I press this little play button over here and I run it, we'll get our console being open for us, and that statement, hello world, will be written for us there. Okay, we'll come back to statements in a second. One last thing to specify on statements is that every statement that we write, we need to end it with a semicolon. So let me write this here, all statements must finish with a semicolon. This is important. Mind you, if you go in Swift or you go in Kotlin, you will not have this semicolon. Java is an old language. It was the way it was designed. It was designed in a way where you could have had all of your code in one line. So you could have done something like this, and it would have been fine, right? it would still be fine. It will still run correctly because it has the curly braces, it has the semicolon. Is this good thing to do? Hell no. This is ugly. It's hard to read. We can't see what we're doing. Don't do this. If you do this, you fail my class. Okay? So that was the, oops, we don't want those. So that was the final rule. Now, that was for statements. We could have many statements. So let's say system SOUT. It's going to fill in the system.out.println. Hello world, I am Reza. Oops. I am your teacher. Right? So remember that, let me put this a bit here. So if we run this, you'll notice some interesting things. On our console, it will write exactly the three statements we've done, the three prints we've done. Hello world, I am Reza, I am your teacher. And it's going to do it in that specified order. So the order will never change. Remember, we've talked about this. This is an imperative language. So it will do it in that specific order that we've given the commands. So if I would take I'm your teacher and I put it first, right? And I run this, well, now I will write this first. I am your teacher. Hello world, I am Reza. So it's important that we understand the order of our commands, our statements, because this is going to be the logic that we're going to utilize to reach our goals. So a rule of thumb is, this is the entry point, entry, right? And all our statements are going to be running. So from top to bottom, one statement, I can't, whatever I wrote, sorry for my handwriting, at a time. So this line needs to finish before this line could get started. And this line, line 6, needs to finish before line 7 gets to start. And our application will end when we reach the curly brace, right? The closing curly brace. So this is our entry. The main method is our entry. And we're going to go inside that code one line at a time, from top to bottom, one statement at a time. Okay? Depending what comes first, well, our end result will look different. So this is important. So remember this inside your mind, top to bottom, one statement at a time. And so one line at a time. It's going to do all those commands in that specific order, and that's really important. Cool? And that's all I had for now. See you guys in the next video.